Hello, and welcome to this live celebration of the launch of Wide for the Win, which is a new book about wide publishing. My name is Leslie Lefebvre. I am the author of the book, and I have some exciting things going on for you today, including a special guest who's going to show up later in this broadcast. So, lay of the land is I'm first going to explain what wide publishing is. Then I'm going to walk through sort of 10 strategies, 10 things to think about, 10 tips that you can use for your wide publishing. And then we're going to take questions, Q&A. So what I'm going to do is, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments, and I'll get to them in the second half of the program. And my special guest will help me in answering the questions, because that's one of the things about wide publishing is, yeah, okay, I wrote this book and I'm calling myself an expert, but I'm really not an expert. I'm learning every single day, and you should be too as an author. And that's one of the benefits of the Wide for the Win Facebook group, because every single day there's thousands of authors in this group, all sharing with their heart, mind, and spirit the things that they've tried to be successful publishing to all the platforms. And so that is something I'm really, really exciting. And I have to say, so Sky comments, says, I hope it's not a dying race. Well, that was just Sky. That was just me making a little bit of a nod to the Jedis in the Star Wars universe, but it was kind of a weird thing that I wanted to play with. So without further ado, I've got some really cool images and graphics to share as part of the countdown. But first, before we get into that, I want to share a little bit about the wide strategy and what is wide publishing. So just to be clear, a lot of people think that I hate Amazon and I hate Kindle Unlimited and KDP Select and exclusivity. I don't actually hate them. I actually love the fact that Amazon was a massive game changer that actually made it so much easier for people to publish. Before the advent of the Kindle and the iPad, the self-publishing was a very, very expensive process, because self-publishing prior to that involved printing massive copies of books, thousands of copies, as you could sit on them and hopefully sell one or two every once in a while. But the digital publishing revolution, which kind of started to be heralded with the launch of the Kindle and Kindle Direct Publishing and sites like Smashwords, really was a game changer. I had self-published initially in 2004. Direct to Amazon through KDP, and I was using Smashwords to get to the other sites. And well, actually, sorry, I self-published in 2004 with print on demand using Ingram Lightning Source. Ingram Spark did not exist back then, so it was a bit harder to do. And then later on, when ebooks became a thing, I did the ebook publishing. But publishing wide in general is being open to the possibilities. Now, within the indie author community, there's this debate, this raging debate of, KU versus KU exclusivity versus publishing wide. And publishing wide in that context means also making your books available on the other platforms. So it's Apple Books, it's Nook, Barnes & Noble, it is Kobo, Rakuten Kobo, and it's Google Play. Those are basically the big five. When you think about the big five of traditional publishing, you're thinking about the major publishers like Penguin Random House and HarperCollins and Hachette and places like that. The big five for the ebook space are those massive retailers. And so that's kind of the beginning of the mindset of wide, is just thinking beyond just one retailer and thinking to be inclusive of all five retailers. But there are many, many more retail websites out there. Some large, some small, some large in certain parts of the world, some not so big in certain parts of the world, but big in other parts. Some that are genre specific. Eden Books, for example, which is very romance oriented. And also it solves a problem for a lot of authors who's, maybe they're a little bit more active romance, the romance that's kind of a little bit more on the edge, a little bit more risque, that's kind of poo-pooed by some of the major retailers and filtered out. Often doesn't appear in libraries. So there's all kinds of retail opportunities beyond just those big five. Just like in traditional publishing, there's all kinds of opportunities just beyond the big five publishers. Hundreds and hundreds, nay, thousands of small press publishers out there. So thinking wide is coming back to the general idea of it's your IP, it's your intellectual property, it's your ideas. And I want you to think not just about ebooks versus other ebook retail, like one ebook retailer versus other ebook retailers, but multiple formats. And of course, thinking in terms of all of the ways that you can leverage, license, distribute, and sell your work. And so what I'm going to get into next is just sort of 10 tips, 10 ideas, 10 things that can help you with your wide publishing strategies. And then after that, I'll be taking live comments with my special guest who's coming up shortly. So let's start with, we're going to do the countdown backwards. Number 10. So one of the things when you're publishing wide, and I'm going to talk specifically about ebooks, is all of the major retailers will allow you to set pre-orders up to a year in advance. And that's really beneficial, really cool. Now, all of the major retailers, and I'll use a case in point of, so Wide for the Win, my new book publishes today, just comes out today on March 23rd, 2021. However, for anyone who has been paying attention, I initially promised that book would come out in January, and I had to push it back, and I pushed it back to the Ides of March. Well, actually, it wasn't the Ides; it was the 16th of March, but the 15th would be the Ides of March. And then, as I was nearing March 5th, sort of the deadline to get the final version up, I realized one of the challenges I ran into is the book, which I thought was going to be about 50,000 words, ended up, well, I wrote way over 100,000, managed to cut it back down to the low 90s. But it was a lot bigger because one of the challenges that I encountered with this book, and I know it's something that Erin Wright encountered when she was first working on her version of Wide for the Win, was everything changes. I mean, just last Friday, I think Google Play just announced a cool new sexy thing that they added to their dashboard. So I just scramble and go back in and update the book at the last minute. And so that was one of the challenges. I could constantly be writing this book. So I actually had to just cut it off. And even now I'm thinking, oh, wow, I don't have a chapter on this. I don't have a chapter on that. I didn't talk about this in enough detail. And that's one of the challenges that happened. But in the meantime, my procrastination and constantly adding to the book meant I had to push the release date back. So what I did with this, just so you understand the logistics of it, is I'm publishing this to Wide through Draft to Digital as a single source. It's because I am doing some payment splitting with it, and I'm taking advantage of Draft to Digital's payment splitting options, which just makes it easier. I don't have to take money in and then say, okay, here you go. Because I lose money, especially as a Canadian, exchanging the money back from US to Canadian. I end up keeping the money that's my portion, and then the people that I'm sharing those proceeds, I can't talk. Proceeds with, we'll get that directly from Draft to Digital. Not only that, they'll get actual proper tax forms, because I don't know how to do those. I'm not American. We do have taxes in Canada, but they're a different sort of thing. So back to the pre-orders after I take a sip of my lovely coffee here, is I had to change the pre-order date, but I did not put the pre-order up on Amazon. Because, and thank goodness I didn't, because I would have been penalized. Had I changed the release date, I would have lost my ability to do pre-orders on Amazon. And so the pre-order for Amazon only showed up, I think, 3 or 4 business days ago. And that was a strategic part on my element on my part. So I do the same sort of thing with some of the retailers where pre-orders can work and don't work. But one of the tips I wanted you to think about was long pre-orders. So Erin Wright, for example, shared with me when we did a one-on-one session, as she was helping me understand the benefits of B&N Press, which is what you can use to publish directly to Nook, is she does really, really long pre-order periods on Nook. And there seems to be an intrinsic benefit, because let me explain a little bit about how some of the wide retailers work. So Nook is born from Barnes & Noble, the US's largest book retail chain. Kobo was born out of Chapters Indigo, Canada's largest book retail chain. Both of them, because they were born from traditional bookselling, do a lot of manual curation. They have merchandisers who actually look at the books. Yes, there are algorithms at play, but they look at the books and they feature things. And so on markets like that, where they're working with a lot of major publishers as well, they're looking for things to curate. So sometimes looking in advance for pre-orders can be beneficial. So a benefit on Apple for pre-orders is, if your book is ready and edited early enough, unlike me, if it's early enough and you're professional enough, unlike me, you can set that book up for pre-order. And Apple does have a promotion opportunity where, if the book is ready, they have like a sneak peek, a preview, where they actually have a human person, a real book lover who works on the Apple Books team, actually look at that and then put it in a recommendation if it's something that they really, really like. So it's not just, oh, wow, this cover looks good, let's slap it up. It is more in line with that actual curation, which can be beneficial. But here's another benefit you're going to get from Apple on pre-orders is the benefit of Apple is, if a customer places a pre-order now for a book, like say is coming out in October, you get a ranking bonus now. It feeds the algorithm and says, wow, this is an important book. Someone's going to look at it now. And then on release date, you get the same benefit. So it's kind of like a double bang for your buck. So you get a little bit of a lift now, which can help the algorithms and help it show it to other customers. And everyone has their version of also bots, but that's something that works at Apple. So it's a 2 times bonus. On Kobo, you get a similar 2 times bonus, although the 2 times bonus happens the day the customer places the pre-order, not the day of launch. So if your book, for example, is coming out in October, what Kobo does, and they call this temperature. If you listen to the latest episode of the Creative Pen podcast with Joanna Penn, she had Tara Kremen, who is the head of the Kobo Writing Life team over at Kobo. And Tara talked about temperature in that fascinating interview I highly recommend you listen to. But that's the temperature of the book. And the way that they treat it at Kobo is the book will get a 2 times temperature bonus. So basically, if you get a regular sale, it would count with an X amount of bonus. Now, this is bonuses dependent upon other factors. How many other books are selling in that category at the same time over a period of time? But whatever that number would be based on those factors, they give it a 2 times bonus, which means you can get a ranking pretty high. And here's another cool thing, especially if your ego needs a little bit of ego stroking. Kobo's presence in the US market is not as big in Canada, so you have to sell a lot in Canada to rank high on Kobo Canada. But if you look at Kobo in the US, where there's not as many sales, you don't really have to sell that many copies to rank high, at least in your category. And that's when you want to take those screenshots and feel really, really good about yourself, because God knows I need to do that on a regular basis. So that's just some of the pre-order tips that I think could be helpful for you when you're looking at publishing wide. Think about the way that the different merchandisers work at the different retailers, and think about your pre-orders as a strategic way of you standing out amongst the digital slush pile, or the digital masses of books that are ready to go, like mine, and were just released right after all the edits were done. So that's some of the planning, some of the promos you can do. Now let's go to number 9. So one of the biggest frustrations with people who decide, oh, I'm going to abandon the Kindle Unlimited glory dreams and I'm going to go publish wide, and then they slap their books up on the other retailers and sit back and go, well, nothing's happening. And then they decide after a week or 2, or even as long, if they're very, very patient, as long as a month, they're like, this is for the birds. I'm not gonna stick with it. And then they withdraw their books from wide and they go back to Kindle Unlimited. They go back to KDP Select and exclusivity. And one of the challenges every time you do that is, well, not just from the customer point of view, especially if you have a series. Think of the customer. What is the customer thinking when they can suddenly find your books one day and then they can't find your books the next? But the yo-yo effect of going in and out and in and out of exclusivity is not only frustrating for the retailers. Trust me, I worked at a retailer for a number of years. Very frustrating for the retailers, because they're stuck dealing with the customers who complain to them because they think it's their fault the book's not available. But every time you take your books out of a wide retailer, you reset your temperature, your ranking back to 0, and you start from scratch every single time. And that's a really frustrating thing to deal with, because here's the reality of the situation. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of effort. It's going to take probably well more than the 90-day tour of duty in Kindle Unlimited and KDP Select. It's going to take longer than 3 months. On average, when I worked at Kobo, I was tracking that it probably took between 6 months to a year before authors actually started to see some traction, because it takes a while for those algorithms to kick in. And the other thing about consistency being king is not just the in and out, but if you're doing promotions, oftentimes it's better to have a slow drip of consistent sales over time. That feeds the long-term algorithms much better than a single day spike where it goes all the way up and comes all the way down. Because when that happens to your sales, you're like, if you're old enough to remember Dexy's Midnight Runners, the one-hit wonder, or Milli Vanilli, or any of those, super massive bands that were huge hits and then disappeared, unlike the Rolling Stones, for example, that have been around for decades. You want to be more like the Rolling Stones and less like Dexy's Midnight Runners. I mean, come on, Eileen. This one I'm stealing directly from Erin Wright as well, from one of her top 10 tips that she had published on hidden gems. And this was, I got a gift for you. A lot of times authors on their newsletter are going to offer a gift. They're like, hey, you can win a Kindle, or you can win an Amazon gift card if you join my list. And it's all Amazon all the time. Very, very few authors think to maybe offer a Nook reader or a Kobo reader or an Apple iPad or some other device, or gift cards for a local bookstore, whatever it is. When you're building your list, remember of the ingrained bias you may have if you were always thinking about, or maybe you only shop on Amazon, that not every customer around the world shops on Amazon. Not every customer can shop on Amazon. So think about that. One of the things that I've done, for example, when I was rewarding prizes, when they were physical book prizes, is, yeah, I can easily drop ship to many locations around the world from the various Amazon sites. But what I always ask the prize winner is, my reader, I would say, well, where do you live? And is there an independent bookstore that you love in your neighborhood? And I would contact the independent bookstore and say, well, can I order my book through you for them to pick up? It's a special order. Can I place it online? Can I call it in? And even obviously during the pandemic, do you have curbside pickup or delivery or anything like that? And then when you're building your list and considering the other retailers and the other places out there, you're building a list of wide readers. And that's really, really important for slowly building that up for yourself. And now let's move on to 7. The price is right if the price is international. A lot of authors that I talk to are publishing in the US, or most of the main sites are often starting in US dollars. But one of the things you need to consider is, especially when you're thinking about the wide retailers and the merchandisers, is they're looking at feeds from local publishers in their currency, in their territories. And those prices have been normalized and look nice. I know it's weird, 9.99 is not a normal price, but here's how the psychology of a book works. You put your book in for $4.99 US, and then some poor slob like me in Canada sees that because it automatically converts based on the exchange rate to $6.37. What, I can't do the math in my head very easily, but let's just say it's something like that. In the consumer's mind, in the customer's mind, they're already rounding up to $7. In their head. If it was $6.01, if it was $6, they've already rounded up because of taxes and all that stuff. So they're already in their head thinking that that's $7. So if it's already $7, why not make it $6.99? Keep the extra change in your pocket. It's good for margin, and trust me, that adds up over time. But it also looks normalized to that $9.99 price, and that's why we have that. Except for Walmart, of course, we have the normalized pricing of the And that's something that's really, really common. So one of the best tools that I use, and yes, of course I'm biased, but I've been using it for long before I started working for Draft2Digital, is if you put your title in Draft2Digital, there's an automatic price converter. When you go into your pricing and you can see manage territorial prices, it'll automatically show you a systematically rounded price to the nearest .99 or nearest .49. So it's usually .99 in US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand dollars. And it's usually .99 or 49, whatever's closer, in pounds sterling or euros. And that's because those dollars typically are stronger. Those tend to be the pricing currencies I think about, because when a merchandiser is looking at potentially featuring it, it just looks more normal and natural to them. So it's one less reason that you give them to just kind of take a pass at your book. And for the consumer, they're already rounding it up in their head. So why wouldn't you keep that money in your pocket? Speaking of money in pocket, I'm going to talk about a different kind of money-related strategy. If there's any Rush fans out there, yes, I was riffing off of Something for Nothing, and that's just for you Rush fans because I love you. But yeah, you can have freedom for free, unlike what they sing in the Rush song. So one of the things is free was a thing people gamed on Amazon back in the day, in the glory days of indie publishing. And that's where you would make your book free, and then it would rank high, and then you'd flip it to paid, and it would stay there. And then Amazon actually got wise. And well, actually, Amazon gets wise to things that they want to help serve their customers with, not publishers or authors. And actually, when I say publishers, just know that I'm saying publishers, and you as an author, if you're publishing to them, you're the publisher too. But they got wise to that because they care more about the readers, which they should, which is what makes them a really good retailer. They care about the readers. So they're constantly looking at how they can play with the algorithms to feed readers the books that are pertinent to them, rather than any of these weird gaming things, which means you're always chasing your tail if you're gaming the Amazon algorithms, as opposed to long-term success focusing on your reader. But back to free. A lot of people think free is dead and that free doesn't work. Free works really, really well, particularly on the larger platforms, particularly with series. And it doesn't have to be series. It can work if you do have standalones, because the whole idea is this has been a consistent retail marketing strategy for decades and decades. You go into Costco and there's people handing out free samples. You go into the local bakery, there's free samples of what's been baked. You can smell it, you can taste it. That giving away that free, there's that feeling of reciprocity really does lead to sales. In your case as an author, that free first in series, for example, or free sample of your writing really allows a reader to check out your writing. And if they like it, there should be a call to action to say, okay, book 2 is available, or my other books are here, or sign up for my newsletter. But that's something that can work. Now, what I usually recommend for authors is it really makes sense, especially when you're paying for marketing free, really makes sense to wait till you have at least 3 books in a series, or 3 other books, or 2 other books at the very least, so that if you lose money on the marketing of free, you make the money back up on the investment of the smaller percentage of people who read it and go on to buy 1 or more of the rest of your books. Now, when I worked at Kobo, we had done some reporting on and studies on free first in series, and we had studied a bunch of different books that had 6 books in a series, and we tracked, like, okay, here's the big promo that was done on book 1 that was free, and then, because we're at Kobo, we could see this is how many other readers went on. And what we learned was that the actual conversion from free downloads to sales was something like 1.4%. If you got a 1.4% return, that was pretty good on average. But what we realized when we actually looked at the details is that between 45 and 55% of people who actually read that first free book were the ones who went on to buy. So the real conversion rate's significantly higher, because the reality when people get a book for free is most of them don't read it. It's like that flyer that you take to be polite when you're walking by and they want to tell you about whatever thing they're trying to sell you that you're not interested in. You know, you want new windows or join my religion or whatever it is that you weren't there for. Sometimes people treat a free book like, yeah, it looks good, I'm going to throw it in my bag, put it on my Kindle, put it on my Kobo or on my Nook. We're going to forget about it. So the trick often is reminding people of that next book. And so speaking of reminding, one of the things that I know the retailers do, and they track series title And Amazon has made managing series directly on KDP really amazing, especially in the last several months. Do take advantage of that on Amazon. Prior to recently, it was harder to take advantage of that on Amazon. Now it's way easier. But on the other platforms, you've got the series metadata. Make sure it's consistent. On places like Kobo, you can even do in-between books. You can have a 1.5, for example. Actually, you can go 1.1 all the way through 1.9 if you had plenty of stories taking place between two novels. But the retailers will often if a customer's actually read a book, they'll actually prompt them and remind them that there's another book in this series. And I've received many of those emails because I read on Kobo. So as a reader, I kind of get those prompts. But free can really, really work. Oftentimes, there's promotions you can get directly through Kobo Writing Life. You can get some promotions directly through Barnes & Noble. I know Apple, just in the last year, has done significant numbers of promos, specifically as I work with them through Draft to Digital. And they've really leveraged, especially since March of 2020, free first in series. And that has dramatically improved sales for a lot of authors who get their titles featured. So those are some of the places where you can really leverage free. You can also use, obviously, places like BookBub, Bargain Booksy, eReader News Today, Fussy Librarian, a whole bunch of these websites. And I would recommend, as Aaron often recommends, is when you're paying for these third-party promo sites, make sure you're paying for sites that actually are inclusive and they're not just Amazon. Because, well, if you're only paying for Amazon, you're only going to see Amazon results. But if you're paying to include other websites, you're going to see that there. So that's a little bit on how free can work. Next is so here's the challenge. Most people spend most of their time looking at Amazon, looking at their sales ranks on Amazon, looking at their Amazon dashboard, and they haven't a clue how the other stores work. What's really, really important is understand how the other stores work. I mean, I do all my most of my ebook reading on Kobo, so I really understand the ecosystem there. I've spent a significant amount of time in the last year trying to better understand Apple. I have the app on my phone. It's not as good an experience for me because I'm an old man and using a smaller device is more difficult. But I have spent a lot more time trying to understand how Apple works and how they merchandise things for their customers. And that's actually helped me grow my Apple sales a little bit. Again, nothing dramatic, no magic bullets here, but it's just helped me. And I've also spent a significant amount of time recently looking at Google as a consumer and actually purchasing stuff on Apple and Google and understanding that a little bit more, opening up the books, reading them on the apps, looking at how they merchandise things. Because when you really understand how they behave, you know how to interact with them in a different way. I can't, unfortunately, do that on Nook because they don't sell to anyone outside the US. So I'm kind of limited there. But at least with most of the other major platforms, I can really understand. And similarly, check out the library apps. Check out Hoopla. There's free apps. Libby is the app from Overdrive. So your books are available. I'm going to talk about libraries in a second. You can really understand how do people find and discover books on their local library. So pay attention to those other stores. Don't just slap your books in there and expect everything to happen for you. You really have to work with the retailers. You really have to understand a little bit more about them. Now, it's hard because you're trying to learn everything at once. You're not going to be able to. Pick one. Try it out. Check it out. Give yourself some time. That's something that can probably work to help you. So just go window browsing. I like thinking wide. I want you to think wide. I want you to always be thinking about wide, but you really have to think narrow when you think about your target readers and your ideal readers. You think about, I always go back to Stephen King and I think about constant reader. And that's that one reader he's thinking about all the time that he's addressing as if there's a personal relationship. Constant reader is, of course, allegedly Tabitha King, his wife, his first reader and best critic, harshest critic, but best critic as well. And all he's doing is he's thinking about her and will she like this story? And that's very, very narrow focus. That's kind of worked out relatively well. I think he's done okay for himself. I think you'll probably, if you haven't heard of Stephen King, you may hear of him. I think they may make a movie or two off of some of his books. He might have hit a bestseller list once in a while. But think about that reader. Think about the reader from the perspective of the platform they may be browsing on. Think about and especially if you have content in your books. Hey, leave an Amazon review that you're posting to the other retailer websites. Think about how the customer who's reading that feels when you're not even addressing their platform. So that's something to think about. But the more you can focus in on the reader, the better it is. And so one of the things I do is I always think of my readers in a Venn diagram. And I've done this for pitches to publishers, but I also do this when I'm trying to pitch this to potential readers. And I'll take a nonfiction book example because it's really, really easy. So Haunted Hamilton, which was the first major trad pub book that I'd published with Dundurn, Canada's largest independent traditional publisher. And there's people who love ghost stories, and then there's people who love the city of Hamilton, and then there's the people who love history. And when you put them all together, that crossover of people who love their city of Hamilton, people who love history, and people who love ghost stories, that's my target readership. And that's how I identified it when I pitched the book. And that's how I think about a lot of my books. So there may be similarities to this author or this brand or this type of book. There may be similarities to this movie or TV show or this thing that people really like, a theme perhaps in fiction. And it's that crossover. So try as much as you can to focus on that narrow niche. And chances are those niche people who love you and your writing the way you want them to, from all three aspects or more, could be 5, could be 6. I'm not that I'm complicated, but I'm not that smart to juggle that many balls. But I put those together because those tend to be the people who are your evangelists, who are out there and are talking about your book. Because one of the studies recently shared in the book industry just a couple of weeks ago says that even though, yes, a lot of people buy books online now, they still buy books based on personal recommendations from people they know, like, and trust. So that word of mouth is really, really powerful, even in this digital environment. I want you to think inside the box, or box set, or digital box set, or omnibus, or whatever term you're using. This is the idea where you take one or more books that are sold separately and you digitally bundle them together as a single EPUB file, and you sell them at a reduced rate. So the benefit on the wide platforms is Amazon forces you to price between $2.99 and $9.99 US dollars. If you go below or above that, you get 35%. Well, on all the other platforms, you're mostly making 70% direct, or 60%, for example, if you're going through a distributor. So that's a huge benefit. So when you do box sets and bundles, a lot of people have it in their heads, I can't price a box set more than $9.99 because Amazon won't let me. And that's frustrating, because if you do, you make less money. And so you may pass on a deal to the consumer. So you don't want to do 6 or 8 or 9 books in a digital bundle because you'll lose money. However, you don't have to put that digital box set on Amazon. All the books are there available for customers. Too bad for the customers that you can't offer them that great deal, like the 30% off if you buy them all in a bundle. But you can definitely take advantage of that at Google, at Apple, and at Kobo, and at Nook. Wow, 4 of the other 5. That's not a bad deal. You can also leverage, with those bundles, you can also leverage promotion. So if you're publishing direct to Kobo Writing Life, for example, it's way better to have your book in one of the monthly 30% off promos you can submit to. Way better to do that with a book that's originally $14.99 or $18.99 that's going to be 30% off, than a book that's $4.99 and is 30% off. For the consumer, remember that consumer, 30% off of $20 is a lot better than 30% off of $5. And so you're giving a great value, and you're more likely to be featured by the merchandisers, because again, at the end of the day, they make that same 30% off of you, no matter what your price is. So they're more likely to feature higher price books more prominently in the front of their digital store. So digital box sets, digital bundles, definitely a great way to leverage more margin on the wide platforms. So libraries, a massive thing for either one copy per user or cost per checkout model. And I'm not going to get into it in much detail. Just do not forget the library platforms. I talked a little bit about the apps. Very, very important. And this is a thing, especially if you're moving from Kindle Unlimited into wide, you're going to potentially have customers. You have to think about your customers, your readers who you've curated over on Amazon, who expect to get your book for free. Well, it's not really free because they're paying Amazon for this all-you-can-eat budget, but they think of it as free. They're getting it for free, but that's limited to this number of people. You want your book to be available to this number of people for free. So when you publish wide and you make it available to the libraries, Draft to Digital, for example, can get you into Overdrive and Hoopla and a whole bunch of other library, Biblioteca, a whole bunch of other library markets. There are multiple distributors that can do that. You can even get books into Overdrive directly through Kobo, for example. Take advantage of that library and just let them know, say, hey, yeah, I'm sorry that it's inconvenient for you, but I need to be fair to all my readers, and I have people around the world who want to get my stuff, and I want to be able to make them free for anyone who wants to read them through the libraries. And so you can get them from your local library, so you don't even have to pay Amazon for that reading. Yes, I understand it's not as convenient, but at least thinking about those libraries, thinking about the larger group of people who could potentially read it. So last one, and then I can bring in my special guest. I'm so excited. I said this earlier, and this is really, really valuable, and it was a real game changer for me. And I learned this from Christine Catherine Rush and Dean Leslie Smith several years ago at one of their Vegas workshops. And it's really thinking outside the book. The book is just one thing, right? You got ebook and print and audio and all the things you can do, but that's just one thing. Your ideas, your imagination, your creativity can be used, can be exploited. Exploit yourself, exploit your IP. Think about the different ways that you can leverage them. There's games, writing for games and tabletop games and video games. I have worked with VoiceMap, for example, where I actually have some of my haunted walks where I'm actually making 50% of the retail on the services, and it was free for me to set up. It just took a while working with an editor there and getting everything published. But there's all kinds of opportunities for you that go beyond the book. So don't just limit yourself to thinking only of books. Similarly, think about selling short stories to magazines, articles based on your expertise. The research you've done to write the book could be turned around into either marketing or content marketing for an article on Medium or something like that. Or maybe it's something you could even sell to a trade magazine and earn additional revenue. So just remember to think outside the book. So I've gone on and on and on. And I'm going to bring in my special guest because she's been waiting so patiently in the wings because I thought this would only be 20 minutes, but I kind of babble on. So Susie O'Connell, welcome.
Hello.
Great to have you here. I'm sorry I babbled on for so long.
Oh, hey, it was great info, so I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, so. And you had a chance to have something to eat.
I did.
So good. I'm glad. I was worried about you. I wanted to make sure that you weren't lightheaded or anything. So I should explain. So Susie O'Connell is one of the awesome super admins of the Wide for the Win Facebook group. And if you guys are not familiar with the Wide for the Win Facebook group, it is a closed group. I'm going to pop up the logo here. It's Wide for the Win, a group for indie authors who publish wide. And I will bring up the banner. I think I have a banner for that. Yeah, Facebook group, Wide for the Win, and that's a really awesome place. And thank you, Susie. You and Aaron created this group, and you do so much work, and you help us in so many ways. And I love the fact that I can go there every single day and learn something from hundreds of other authors who share. What's that experience been like for you?
It's honestly amazing. I've been wide since 2014. And that's ironically, or read into this what you will, that's when I was also able to start making a full-time income with my books. So
whoa.
See, make of that what you will. The group is fantastic. We have 6,300 members now. It's only 2 years old, and it's been great. I go in there every day and learn something new too. And it's almost sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming because I'm going, oh, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. But I still have to write books.
Of course.
I don't have a very deep backlist. I've only got 13 books out right now.
Wait a second. So you only have 13 books out, but you've been able to make a full-time living since
book 4.
Oh, yep. My goodness. Can I ask what platforms you do the best on?
Amazon is still number 1, of course. Barnes & Noble actually this year and last year has been number 2. It bumped Apple down. So,
wow. And they only sell in the U.S., so that's pretty significant. Congratulations.
Yeah, it is. Well, part of the thing that sucks about writing contemporary small-town Western romance is it's a very U.S.-centric genre, unfortunately.
Well, that makes sense then. Yeah.
My next most popular country is probably Australia. And actually some of my best, most vocal fans that I know the best are from Australia.
Really?
I have to make a pilgrimage down under for
Australia, isn't Australia still considered the wide west of the British Empire?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think so.
there you go. And are you Australian? I'm guessing you have a pretty high Kobo percentage of your Australian sales. Is that true?
Actually, the most of my Australians are from Apple Books.
Apple. Oh, cool. Okay, because I when I was at Kobo, Australia was often in the top 5 of
I think
countries.
it's the number 2 country for Kobo. Canada
cool.
being first, and then the UK is third.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, no, I've been doing this full time, but the group is so fantastic. Yeah, every day I learn something new.
Awesome.
Almost too much.
Yeah, I know, that's the great thing. So we have a bunch of questions. Can I start throwing them up and we can kind of have a crack at them? All right. So the first one is coming from Sarah. Sarah says, would you recommend using paid advertising during pre-orders? What do you say, Susie?
My problem with doing that is you're going to end up spending a lot more money per sale that you get, because they're technically, unless you're tapping into your existing readers, they're going to be cold readers. They don't know you yet. So if you have a book, they're like, okay, sure, I'll pick it up. But if it's pre-order, number one, they don't know you. They've never read you. They don't know if they're going to enjoy your books. And it's a pre-order, so not only do they not know you, they're going to have to wait. So in my experience, and I tried this a couple of times, and it's just, I ended up spending probably 4 times more per sale than I did on a regular for sale book that was already live. So, I mean, you can try it. Obviously, everybody's mileage is going to be different. So go ahead and give it a shot, but don't expect great things, I guess. At least that's not my experience. So
fantastic. Thank you. That's a great perspective. What I was thinking of is a lot of the paid advertising would be like the BookBubs of the world, where you're dropping your price. And I don't want to drop my price and lose money on, like, I would rather try to sell it at full value for the people who really, really love my stuff, and then try a paid promo later. So,
well, and that ties into that. Should I set my pre-order at 99 cents or $2.99 if it's going to be $4.99 full price? And I say no to that. I tried it once, and my readers actually got mad at me for doing it, and they waited. Basically, they waited until it was full price to buy the book, and they were mad because they had to wait then. Because it's like, your readers, your best fans, the ones who are going to pre-order your books, they want to support you. They want you to keep writing. So they're going to want to pay full price, which, hey, that's pretty awesome. That's a good problem to have. If you're a new writer and you're just starting out, maybe. But if you've got, 4, 5, 6, 20 books out, it's not something that I'd want to do.
Yeah, they've tested you out. They either love you or don't love you. And if they love you, let's be honest, most indie authors, come on, it's an expensive Starbucks coffee is what you're selling a book for. You're getting 8 or 9 hours of love and joy out of that price. Okay, so a couple comments related to pricing. So Liza said, this is the first time I've heard the why. Thanks, Liza. I'm glad we could share that with you. And then Sky, who's done a lot of research apparently, because there's a lot of textures. The study from MIT with women and clothing and the price points. Basically, it said that 9 is the magic number. So use it. And that's from her blog. So I think we should check out Sky's blog. What are your thoughts about that 0.99 price point?
Totally agree. It's that 99 cents, even though it's technically 1 penny less than, okay, it's $4.99, it's 1 penny less than $5. Your brain, even if you consciously think, hey, it's $5, your brain still registers that 4 first. So you might as well get that extra almost $1 out of it, right?
Exactly. Why not?
Yeah. I totally believe that more people would buy the clothing at 39 than 34. It's just that it is a magic number, because it feels like that one off from the next number up feels like a discount somehow, like you're getting a deal. Yeah,
it feels like that to me anyways. So.
And even though I know this stuff, it's still like, oh, it's cheaper than 40.
Yeah, it's not 40 quite yet.
No, not quite, not there. So.
All right, so just a comment I'm going to share. This is from Bradley. Had to jump on another call. Thanks for joining earlier, Bradley. If you're watching this in playback. And he bought the book on Apple because he's walking the talk. I love the fact that people are checking it out on all of the platforms. Jesselyn said, "Wide for the Win is life-changing." So I'm saying thank you, Susie, for Wide for the Win. This is a life-changing experience. Learned so much in the group and can't wait to learn more. Thank you all for what you've created. So awesome. And so subscribed. Richard subscribed. Did you subscribe to my YouTube channel, please and thank you? No, I don't know what that could mean. Okay, all right. Okay, Wendy, this is more self-promo stuff. Paperbacks are in the queue. Should be flowing from Ingram to the downstream places any day now. I was hoping they would come today, but I'm testing a new thing, and we'll see how that goes. The paperback should be available soon, and I have to apologize. I had to set the paperback price north of $20 because it's close to 500 pages, and I really didn't want to. I wanted to keep it low, but I didn't want to lose money on the paperback. So it is coming out soon. Thank you, Wendy, for asking. Okay. And Nadine says, I'm so happy that I'm part of this group and become Wide. Not even 3 months ago. Welcome to Wide, Nadine. You're welcome and loved in the Wide group. So.
Indeed, we do.
Excellent.
I'm a weird person.
There are no other questions. I was because there were a whole bunch of comments. I was trying to get to them. So if you have any questions, and then of course, thanks, Sky. Looking forward to the paperback on your shelf as it eventually gets. Let's blame me and me changing things at the last minute on Friday. Susie, any other thoughts? And unless we get any other questions, any other sort of thoughts about Wide? Like what are you looking forward to next? What are some of the things you've been thinking about lately?
I'm just trying to get caught up on all the different possibilities. I mean, ebooks, audiobooks, and when I started audio, it was ACX. Pretty much was it. And of course, I made a few mistakes, and I'm waiting to get those out so I can actually do something with my audio.
Right.
But I mean, there's some good things coming down. We've been chatting with Sabrina at Google Play, and she's got a lot more exciting things to announce. Upgrades to Google Play.
She teased me. She teased me the other day because I was thanking her for the cool update, and I got it just in time to tweak it into the book, because I was like, well, you can do the price promo, but you got to use this spreadsheet, and I had like this pages and pages of how to use the spreadsheet, and then I was able to cut that out. But then she teased me and said there's more coming. And honestly, let's talk about Google Play for a second, because they have been late coming to the game. I've been self-publishing with Google for, since they launched the platform. I wasn't even at Kobo yet, way back in the day. And they have, just in the last year, Sabrina and the team there have done a dramatic job.
Totally.
Like the tool. Have you taken advantage of the coupon, because you can self-serve coupon codes at Google Play?
I have not yet. I have not had time to even try that out yet. I've been trying to get a book written, so that's been my main focus. But no, Google Play in the last year, like you say, they have improved the platform so much. It's like we now actually have live reporting, or almost live. You actually have a graph like everybody else has, so you can see your sales. Oh, that is so much better than
finally an online graph.
I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah.
And I actually did run a couple of promos with the spreadsheet, which it was a pain in the butt. It took me probably an hour to get all the country codes and figure out what all the prices were going to be for this promo, because I had to get it to 99 cents at some, but like 65 in India. And it's like, it was a pain in the butt. So I'm really, really happy to see it. And it worked, but I'm really glad to see the new promo update. That's fantastic. That was, I cheered out loud when I saw our email.
Although I have to say, if you were doing let's say a catalog wide or a series wide feature, because Google allows you to price in 50 different countries or whatever in different currencies, it would actually take forever to use the manual tool. So the spreadsheet could actually save you time. Right. Which I kind of like.
Already have a template set up.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the coupon codes, because I played with it, and what I did is I took 20 of my titles and I said, okay, I want to try and and I'm doing this with an author I'm working with. Is we're now going to move all of his books into Google Play, and then email the newsletter and say, hey, you've never really been on Google Play before. Here are all the books, 75% off, any one of them you want. Click here. And when you create that coupon code, they make a special landing page for you with just your books, which is kind of cool. Isn't that exciting? So that's something that I like about
exciting.
Yeah. So, and I think we got a question. We got a question from, sorry? Pop up the question?
Actually, that question kind of ties into that. Yeah.
I wonder if there are any tips for selling on Barnes & Noble. Okay. I'm sure you've got stuff, Susie.
I do, actually, and that kind of ties in with the coupon codes from Google. Barnes & Noble also adds that or offers that. And I think most, if not all, authors should have the buy one get one coupons on their dashboards now. That is a great way to introduce people to the platform. If they have read your books or a couple of books and maybe they don't want to buy from Amazon anymore, and there are surprisingly quite a few readers out there who are getting sick of Amazon shenanigans. It's not just the authors, it's readers too.
Right.
I've actually, I sent out an email a while ago, and I had several people in the last year that have switched to either Apple or Barnes & Noble or whatever. And so for those readers that are looking to switch or who have never tried Apple or Barnes & Noble, and especially since we're going to talk about Barnes & Noble here, those coupon codes are a great way to introduce them at a low cost to them, so they're going to be more willing to do it. And not only does that help build your wide readership, it also helps Barnes & Noble stay afloat. We don't want them to go away, so let's help them out where we can. The other thing is you can email Barnes & Noble, or if you're in the Wide for the Ring group, you can tag Julie Sarah. She's actually the rep from Barnes & Noble in the group, and ask if you can have the merchandising tab added to your dashboard. And what that does is they actually, like Kobo, they do a lot of hand-curated promotions. Like right now, they had an opening for 500 titles under $5. And so you can actually apply to be in that, and it's hand-curated, so they look at your books. And if they think your book is going to be a good fit, hey, there you go. You're in the promo. And guess what? It doesn't cost you anything. Those promos are actually where I've built my Barnes & Noble readership this last year, and why it's actually outselling Apple now, which was always my number two, a strong number two behind Amazon. And I had several, I think, was it 4 months last year? Barnes & Noble actually outsold by itself Amazon. And there was 1 month during one of these promos, and it was a price promo, just a plain old price promo. So I dropped the book to $2.99 from $5.99. They ran it in their promo, emailed their readership or whatever. And I made 3 times as much on Barnes & Noble as I did on Amazon from this promotion. So if you don't have that in your dashboard, definitely email Barnes & Noble and ask for the merchandising promo or the promo tab, because it does make a big difference. Now, you're not always going to get the promos. Obviously, you have to apply for them just like anything else, but they are hand curated. So on the reader end of it, it's great because, readers are a lot more trusting of these promos because, hey, somebody actually took the time to make sure this is going to be a good book that I might enjoy. It's not just driven by algorithms like Amazon is. So it taps into that recommendation, that personal recommendation mentality.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you. And you gave me an idea when you were talking about coupon codes and people who moved over, like maybe they moved to Apple, or maybe they moved to Google, or maybe they moved to Nook or Kobo. And I know Apple, you have to have a contact there if you're direct, but I know through D2D, for example, or through Kobo Writing Life, you can manually send an email to the team and request a coupon code. It will take them several days because a human has to go do it. It's not like a self-serve like it is at B&N and Google. Yeah. But you can have them created with specifications. So you could say, for example, if you have a reader on your newsletter that, is like, well, I had all my stuff, but my Kindle, it fell in the water and it died. And so I thought I'd buy a Kobo because it's a way better reader. I'm biased. But then I can go, oh, you already bought all my stuff on Kindle, and I love you. You're a reader. I want you to have a complete library. So here you go. Here's some coupon codes. Just throw them into so you have them on your Kobo now. And I know so that could be something you could even do for your diehard fans.
And I've actually had a few fans that this is before a lot of the retailers started offering these codes, or I'd run out of codes and I couldn't get any new ones. And I use BookFunnel to do that, but doing it through the retailer is even better. Yeah. Because then it's in the retailer-specific library. So if it happens again and they get a new Nook reader or a new Kobo reader, they can just go download the books again. They don't have to trouble you for anything. They can just go grab it again. Yeah, it's in the cloud. Which is awesome.
Yeah, and and BookFunnel, you're right, is an awesome. I love what Damon has built. There's so many great tools, but then you're also feeding the back end also bots and algorithms because that customer has it in their library. Exactly. That's also important. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Definitely so.
All righty. So I think we're getting close to the hour. I was hoping to wrap up by an hour. Susie, do you have any last words of wisdom for the beautiful widelings out there? And I want to say thank you guys for watching. But any words?
Yeah, if you guys haven't already joined the Wide for the Wing group, do join us. We only have one really super strict rule. That's we try not to talk about KU, and we don't ever talk about Kindle Unlimited as something better than wide, because as far as I know, as far as Erin knows, our wonderful fearless founder, as I call her, there aren't any other wide dedicated groups out there. This is the only one we've found that we know of. And, you know, Erin had to create it herself and then brought me on board. And it's incredible. So we try not to talk about Kindle Unlimited even as we try to refrain from even discussing it as a platform and ins and out, because it's almost like a political discussion, and it's a very heated topic amongst authors. And I joke, I kid you not, I have been called stupid to my face in those terms for not having my books in Kindle Unlimited. Yeah. And I'm like, how is it stupid to, you know, say, hey, this other 50% of readers that are on the wide platforms, I love you, so I'm staying wide. How is that dumb? You know?
Yeah. I think the other flip side is you look at the books on the market and most of the groups and most of the discussions and most of the forums and any of the places where authors are talking, it's, you know, Marsha when it comes to Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. And there's very little talk about the other platforms. And we know those other platforms, I mean, Kobo they're book nerds. That's all they do. That's all they do is books. That's all they care about. They don't care about selling refrigerators or anything like that. So they're dedicated to reading. I know that the book nerds at Apple, that they're book people. They're from the book industry. They love books. And I know the same thing about, you know, Sabrina and the Julie and those folks who are at Nook. Obviously, they're book people from Barnes & Noble. But even at Google, these are the people at Google who love books the best. So I think helping people understand that there's way more beyond the horizon. I think that's why it's important, because if you want to have those discussions, there's 50,000 other places to go have them. We're not going to say you can't have them. We're just saying, we don't want to muddy the water.
There's other groups. And even the question we get a lot too is, well, should I have part of my catalog in Kindle Unlimited and part of it wide? My answer is always going to be no, because then you're still dividing your readership. And we don't allow that discussion either, because again, it takes the focus away from wide. Yeah. And for some reason, Amazon sent, I mean, well, I can understand it because everybody talks about Amazon. It's the, 10,000 pound gorilla in the room. But number one piece of advice is build that wide mindset. If you want to succeed wide, you have to focus on the wide. You have to get away from that Amazon centric thinking. And I've been wide, like I say, 2014. So this is going on 7 years now.
It's in your DNA now, right? Yeah.
I still catch myself thinking in Amazon-centric terms. And it's like, why am I researching this book on Amazon instead of on Barnes & Noble or Apple Books? You know, it's like in 7 years and I still catch it. So that's something I've really been working on the last year, especially being in the group and moderating the group, is focusing on that wide mindset. You know, make sure you're learning the other platforms from the reader perspective. Also, you know, from the author perspective, obviously you need to know that side, but use it as a reader. You know, buy a book there or browse there, or, you know, check it out, see how it works, see where your rankings are at, see where your reviews are at, you know, that kind of thing. Use the browse function, check out, you know, by category, use the search function, download a sample, all those kinds of things. Learn the platforms as a reader so you can know what the readers experience who use those platforms. And just get away from Amazon. If you want to succeed wide, you have to focus on the wide mindset. So, and like Erin's number one point is, make a point of focusing on the whole picture when you do your promotion. So like if you're doing a newsletter promotion on your first free in series, make sure the newsletter services you're using also send out to Apple and Barnes & Noble and Kobo and Google Play. I was trying to combine two of them there. And it really is a mindset. It's a wholly different beast. Right. And, you know, for me, I'm such a slow writer that I love wide because I don't have to churn out a book a month to stay afloat. You know, wide is, for all you other slow writers out there, wide is so much kinder to us slow writers. It's fantastic. You can actually have, you know,
it's slowly kind to us, but it's kind. Yeah,
it is. But, you know, it's like, and point out too, for the people who are kind of afraid to jump in, don't do the yo-yo thing. Either go in or stay out. But the bouncing back and forth is just going to hurt you on both sides. And you brought that up a while ago, and I just kind of want to, you know, pound that one home because it's really important.
It's good
I have a couple of friends. It is. I have a couple of friends that did the bouncing back and forth, and it messes up. You have to start over from scratch every time you bounce. You know.
That's true.
So yeah,
that is tough. And I'm glad you talked about mindset, and so that's really, really important. That's why, I mean, the first part of my book, it's divided into 5 parts. The first part of the book, mindset, is like 40 5%.
I know.
It's so critical.
It
So
is.
a couple last thoughts. So Blaine said, I was wide, caved a few years ago, been going back to wide. Welcome, Blaine. If you're not part of the
Yes.
Wide for the Win group, check
Join.
it out. Lots of fantastic people. Ask questions and welcome. And pack some patience. Nadine says, this month my Amazon sales dropped to 30% with the wide increase. Congratulations, Nadine. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Susie, thank you guys. So I have, anyone who knows me knows a parody is what I do. Dad jokes and parody and beer and skeletons and stuff. So as we leave, I'm going to leave you with a parody song of one of my favorite old George Harrison songs, Got My Mind Set on You. But it's Got My Mind Set on Wide. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Susie, for joining me here today.
Mhm.
I got my mind set on wide. 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 But it's gonna take learning. Kind of worldwide. It's gonna take learning. Do it right time. It's gonna take time. Lot of precious time. It's gonna take patience and time. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it right. I got my mind set on wide. 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 This time a published line. I got my mind set on white. Set on white. I got my mind set on white. Set on white. But it's gonna take money. Whole lot of marketing money. It's gonna take training money. Do it right time. It's gonna take time. A lot of precious time. It's gonna take patience and time. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it right.